Buying a home in Breckenridge isn't just about the price tag. There are many real costs that buyers don't consider, and I want to make sure you're prepared and know all of the costs before making the big purchase. Let's talk about HOAs, but I don't want to just talk about the normal HOA fees that we normally think about, which is they cover things like utility bills, internet, snow removal, things like that. I want to talk about special assessments. So what is a special assessment? Well, every month an HOA collects dues from all members of that community or that resort. And those funds go towards either operating expenses, so things that the HOA needs on a month-by-month basis to pay for heating, to pay for maintenance of the resort, things like that. And then there's also the component of your dues that are for what are called reserves, which are for future capital expenditures, such as new roofs, new boilers, painting, things like that. However, there are times where things come up. We all can appreciate that, being homeowners. And so a lot of times those dues don't have enough collected in the reserves, and something like new windows or a whole new exterior of a resort needs to be done, and there's just not enough money. So what does the HOA do? They do have to get approval from the home ownership through a vote, and it all depends on what the bylaws say for that particular HOA. But anyway, there does have to be a vote, and in that case, if it passes by a majority, whether it's 2/3 or a half or 51%, whatever it is for that particular HOA, then all the homeowners could be assessed in a special assessment and have to pay anywhere from $500 up to a few $1,000s for these future repairs. So just something to consider. It's a big price tag, so you will want to make sure that wherever you're buying, that the HOA is healthy and that you are looking to see if there could be any potential special assessments. Another hidden cost with owning a property here in the mountains, especially if you're going to rent it, has to do with replacing items. It happens. It's called normal wear and tear. Even in your primary residence, as you know, after a while you may need to purchase a new sofa. Over time, dishes may break and you need to replace those. Well, a rental is no different. So when you have a short-term rental or a long-term rental up here, it is not uncommon to need to factor in things like new coffee makers or a new lamp that maybe got broken. Of course, there are things like a new refrigerator that over time may go out. So those are some of the bigger expenditures, but don't discount or forget about the smaller items. Light bulbs, you may need to replace, or I already mentioned dishes is a small thing, utensils, you may need a new area regs. All of these things can add up over time, so don't forget about that particular cost. Let's also talk about property management fees. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the property management fees and things to consider in this video, so watch for that in a future video. But in a nutshell, you need to be aware that property management fees can vary greatly depending on where you are at. Typically here we see roughly 25% up to 45% of your gross rental income a property manager will take for their fees. Now, I know it seems awfully high, but guess what? It is absolutely earned. Having owned a property management company in the past, I can tell you there is so much that goes on behind the scenes. But again, another video for that topic. In this one, I just want you aware that that can be a big chunk of your funds that you'll need to factor in when considering purchasing a second home or condo here. So another consideration are utility fluctuations. So in the summertime, your electric bill is going to be pretty small. We may get up to the 80s in temperature, but for not very long at all, maybe for a week. I don't even know if I've ever seen it for 2 weeks straight. I love it because I get Texans here. We love Texas, our #1 out-of-state buyer, and they always ask if we have air conditioning. Well, not many places have air conditioning up here. You just don't need it. We do have fireplaces, as you can see behind me. I have a fire going now. But the point is, our utilities do fluctuate. So even though the utilities may be small for electric in the summertime, they can go up substantially in the winter. So keep that in mind. And of course, with gas, well, that can fluctuate also throughout the year. So what are some other cost considerations? What about transportation? I have owners that have chosen to rent a place for their second vehicle and keep it at Denver International Airport. That's certainly an option, but again, another cost that you need to think about. So does a homeowner need to pay for parking if they own in a resort that has underground parking? The answer is usually no. Homeowners almost always get free parking no matter where they own. However, again, like all things, you'll want to make sure that you check with your HOA. Another cost consideration is insurance. So property insurance, you will not only want to have insurance for your contents, meaning all of your furniture, if you leave any clothes in the home or skis in an owner's closet, things like that, that's your contents. But also most resorts have what's called a bare walls policy, meaning that HOA insurance, which you're paying for through HOA fees and dues, most HOAs pay up to the bare walls within your unit. So you would still need, in the case of total destruction, say a fire that completely took out the resort, then you would need to pay to build from the walls in. So the carpet, the drywall, the plumbing, all of the light fixtures, all of those things. So keep in mind your insurance and make sure you get the correct insurance policy, especially if you are going to short-term rent. Now, if you're going to own a home here in Breckenridge, you will also want to consider maintenance that is a little bit bigger than what we thought about in a condo, which is replacement cost. You'll want to consider things like having to restain the exterior of the home or the deck. What if you need to do repairs outside? That can be kind of spendy as well. Of course, with a home comes a lot of some bigger items too, such as potentially you need to do different plumbing or buy a new washer, a new dryer, things like that. You may even need to asphalt a driveway. That can be a pretty expensive thing to consider as well. So again, with a home, think of all of these maintenance items. Remember, we're in alpine conditions up here. So even something like a 30-year roof really might only have a 15 or 20-year lifespan up here with our intense sun, which we love, but it does mean it can be a little bit brutal when it comes to things like your roof. Now, if you have found any of these tips useful, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you can be informed of other tips and things to consider whether you're a buyer or seller or just a homeowner here in Breckenridge. And if you would like my free buyer's checklist that has everything to consider, then just go ahead and comment down below and say buyer's checklist, and I'll make sure to get over to you a lot of these things that we considered and more.